really is the golden moment for Indian sport. Assam girl Hima becomes the first Indian ever an athlete to win a gold medal in a track and field world championship. It's a clip I have watched repeatedly, and each time she runs past the rest flying to glory, I confess of national television that I have choked. The country has raised a toast to the golden girl from the paddy fields of Northeast. Everyone from the Prime Minister to Sachin Tendulkar hail it as the beginning of a new era. In fact, industrialist Anand Mahindra goes on to say it is a reflection of a growing economy and rising aspirations of the sporting heroes. But the fact is that India, despite its economic prowess, remains a minnow on the sporting arena. At a time when a tiny country like Croatia, with a population of less than 4.2 million people, is vying for the prestigious Soccer World Cup title, we have hardly any achievement to talk about, apart from cricket, of course. So what ails Indian sport? Rather, what would it take for India to have many more Himas gold? And what it means for billions of India's sport lovers is a big topic of discussion right here on the India Development Debate tonight. I'm Supriya Shrinate, and let's take this straight across to an expert panel that's joining us. Ashwini Nachappa, former athlete herself, Anuj Gupta, co-founder Sudeva Football Club, Mustafa Ghaus, the CEO of JSW Sports, and Sharda Ugra, senior editor, ESPN Cricket Info. Thank you, each one of you, for being with us and taking time out. And I am reasonably certain that, much like me, each one of you has watched that clip repeatedly and feels absolutely exhilarated each time you see this. We love what she did. We love the race. Sharda, let's begin with you. Hima is really India's golden girl. Even the commentator sounded excited when he said what this will do for sports in India is just incredible. Those were his words. And as Anand Mahindra says, is her victory a sign of higher aspirations of sporting heroes in a growing economy? Should we believe that the moment has arrived in India with Hima Das's gold?
Supriya, I think the moment has been in India for, say, maybe the last 10 years following Abhinav Bindra's gold medal at the Beijing Olympics. What has happened with this particular event is that it's an athletic event. Athletics are sort of the mother sport of all sports, as Ashwini Nachappa will also tell you. So, you know, it is a great feel-good moment. She's just 18 years old. She's had this great performance. But I think to link her performance with the fact that suddenly everything will improve and we'll start producing champions is a little bit premature. It takes a lot for anyone to be able to move on to from senior to junior. It's a big jump, and that's where Hima Das will have to be nurtured, looked after very carefully. She's come into the limelight, and she's produced some excellent performances over the last 18 months. This kind of freak result is very much a part of Indian sport. That these people, because we have so much talent in the country, that's just there waiting to be found, and it bursts through from time to time. What we do with that talent is a completely different thing. What that talent is able to do for themselves over their careers, that's a completely different thing. So it's a great day for celebration. It brought back all kinds of memories for all of us who've been waiting for a great track star since PT Usha left. But it's, I think, a little bit of perspective would help everyone.
No, I'm sure, you know, us on television often get carried away when we see visuals like that. And thank you for beginning on a reality check there, Sharda. But optimism set aside, just for a moment, and you know, I want to come to you, Mustafa, because you represent corporate India on this panel. Want to quickly get one question out of the way and then go across to Ashwini Nachappa and of course Anuj Gupta. Mustafa, is it also quite clear from Hima Das's victory that the talent for India lies beyond the metros, the big towns? It's to be found in the rice paddy fields of Assam and the mountains of Arunachal. And so we will have to scout for our heroes there and not in the dazzling big cities. Is that also what this tells you? And what sort of a role can corporate India play in tapping talent at entry and local levels in India's hinterland? I mean, what was on Hima Das was not just the tricolour, but also the cotton Assam gamocha.
No, I think, I mean, it's been the case for quite a while now with India that most of the sporting talent is coming in from the rural parts of the country, be it, you know, Haryana, Punjab, the Northeast, Kerala and certain parts of maybe Karnataka and Maharashtra, but I think it's very important for everyone involved, and that goes from the coaches to the trainers, the government authorities, and then corporates to really find nurture these talents at this age when they need it the most. There's very little that you can do when they're established and 25, 26 years old, and you can't make the type of impact that you would make if they were 12, 13, 14, and that's something that we are doing in a more aggressive manner. We are looking at athletes that are in that range of 12 to 14 years old, so that the influence that we can have on their performance and them actually achieving their true potential is enormous. So it is definitely a collective effort that everyone involved needs to take, and if we do that, I mean, sky's the limit for Indian athletes.
All right, let me go across to someone who will really know the state of Indian sports inside out, because by the virtue of being on the tracks herself. Ashwini Nachappa, it's a pleasure chatting with you. Why don't we have many more Hima Dases? I think it's a question that every Indian would want to ask this evening. Government funding, and I'm going to talk a little bit numbers here. Government funding to the national sports federations between 3 years from 2012 to 2015, that's the data available, is over 48,000 crore rupees. That was released for national coaching camps. Salary of foreign coaches was about 26,000 crore rupees. Is it time to review how sports administration is done in the country? And is it time to perhaps think about, how sports administrators have to be assigned goals and they have to be evaluated for the initiative on the ground? Because many people believe that is where the solution lies. It can't lie with the civil servants who are part of this exercise or the politicians. It has to be done by, former players themselves. And even with them, it has to be more result-oriented evaluation.
Well, Supriya, I'm happy that you struck the right chord, because sports is growing industry in our country, and I must say I'm very, very proud as an athlete to be sitting here and talking about Hima Das. Today nobody's talking about cricket, though we've beaten England, and she has taken over the media as well as the Twitter handles and the Facebook, and I'm extremely proud for what she has achieved. Let's recognize the fact that she comes from a small town, and nobody is talking about the coach that contributed and who actually, found the talent and the skill in that small town and absorbed her. I think a lot of credit goes to him as well as the entire support system, her family, who believed that she could achieve it. Now, having said that, it's not the ministry's job to nurture athletes. It is the federation's job, and you said it right. The job of capacity building, the job of nurturing athletes, the job of talent identification, all these comes as responsibilities of respective federations and the Olympic Association. What the ministry does is to facilitate and give them the impetus to achieve the goals. You all know, I mean, the whole country knows what happened in the 2010 Commonwealth Games, and then everybody started realizing that management of sport is so terrible in our country, not just at the national level, but trickling down to the district level. And I think it's time that we look at conducting our business more professionally and be accountable for what we are doing. Today, none of the federations are really accountable. Money is being doled out, but they are not accountable on the way they manage sport, and I think we should relook at that.
That's a very valid point indeed, that we need to perhaps look at how sports is being managed. More result-oriented and more goal-oriented approach needs to be taken. Anuj Gupta, let me come to you. The National Sports Development Fund spent about $3.5 million on potential 109 Olympic athletes in 2017, which translates to roughly about $9,000 per athlete every year in the run-up to Olympics. We won 2 medals. Look at UK, which won 67 medals in Rio Olympics and spent about $36,000 a year, which is 4 times of what we did on our own athletes of 9,000. Can we even think about bridging this gap? Can we even think about bridging this gap by either government funding or private funding and any of that? Look at the difference there is on their medal winning athletes. They spent about $36,000 each. We spent just about $9,000.
Well, hi everyone. I understand that there's a big difference between the funding which is being provided by the ministry and the federation to the respective sports. But I personally believe that it is not the problem of the funds. It is the problem of the people who are using those funds to implement the programs in various sports. Because, I mean, you know, if I talk about my experience as running a football academy and a football club, from day one when we started it until now, you know, it has been a 24-hour job where we have put all our soul, everything to make sure that the children who are playing football at our residence, they are being nurtured completely. So it is a job which has to be taken very passionately, and it has to be thought from India perspective and from international perspective, that if you are in that job, then you can't think that these are the problems, because no matter which job you have, there are a lot of problems, but you need to find solutions, and those solutions are always there. So we need to have more passionate people who understand the importance of producing not only national level players but international level players, which would definitely lead us to bring medals at Olympics. You know, so the rationale of the lack of funding is not the money. It is whether that money is being used for the purpose it was given. And for instance, if I talk about the funding which is given for the development of football, I personally feel that it is less, but it is still a lot for the development at all levels. But yes, it cannot be the only, it can't be the responsibility of the federation and the ministry to develop the sport. It is also the responsibility of every individual who is part of that sports fraternity, whether it is the coach, whether it is the ex-sportsman, whether it is the people who are writing about sports. Everything has to be in the positive direction, because once it is at the positive direction, everyone will start believing in the sport and will start believing that yes, medal is only a time. Otherwise, you know, I mean, we cannot say that federation is where the problem is.
Anuj, you make an important point. Anuj, I'm going to come in. Anuj, let me come in. Okay, Anuj, let me come in. You make an important point about passionate decision making and passionate drive. But none of this can happen without money, which is why I'm going to, you know, Sharda Ugra brought some realism and pragmatism onto the show, and I'll go back to her on this. Sharda, the total corporate funding to the National Sports Development Fund in the last decade is somewhere about 12,000 crore rupees. Of this, roughly 3/4 has come from BCCI, JP and IIFC. The rest comes from PSUs, whether it's SBI, whether it's Coal India, whether it's Mazgaon, Shipbuilders or DVC. Where are the private money bags? Why don't we have private sector participation in India's sports? I'm going to take this across to Mustafa, who represents the JSW sports community, but I still want to ask you for your independent perspective on this.
You know, we can't, I mean, where the money is with the money bags, I guess you have to ask the money bags themselves. Say, for example, when you will be speaking to Mustafa, what JSW has done is a completely different approach rather than just pumping money into the NSDF. I'm not sure whether people remember that it is the sports minister, Rajyavardhan Rathore, his silver medal at the 2004 Athens Olympics came from the money generated by the NSDF. He went about it himself, making sure he got the money, he filled in the forms and triplicate 4 times, whatever, and he got the stuff that's there. The money is there. Money is not a problem. I understand what you said about the fact that UK spent $36,000 and so on. What our Indian athletes lack at the moment is a couple of things, and like Ashwini said, you know, it's on the federations pretty much to start with. There is no structure for them to actually improve and get better in. There is no sustained year-round calendar of events for athletes at the absolute base level, district level, to take part in a lot of sports. For example, you will not find a sustained calendar. It will be sporadic events here and there, which is why corporates like, say, JSW, where Mustafa is, or sporting non-profits which also get their money from corporates. That's Olympic Gold Quest, Go Sports Foundation, Anglian Medal Hunt, and so on. That's where they are trying to sort of fill in the gaps that the federations have left behind. We have to, and at the same time, why are federations not accountable, as Anuj was saying? Because then I'll get into my favorite topic, which is the sports development bill, which is sitting stuck, hanging somewhere between law ministry and sports ministry, and not getting pushed through for political reasons. So there are so many problems that Indian sport has, but talent is not the problem. And at this point in time, I don't think money is the problem either. Maybe Mustafa will have more to tell you about that.
No, absolutely. I know Ashwini wants to add a point there. Let me just quickly take a point from Ashwini Chinnappa before I go across to Mustafa. Ashwini, you want to add a point to this?
Yeah, I think the money is available, but how are we utilizing the money is important. Do we have the science of sports, the knowledge of sports available in our country? We don't. We are not investing in those areas. Yes, we are sporadically giving, the top scheme has come, athletes have been giving out some money, they've been giving us a little bit of exposure with the money that they get in. All that is there, but then sports is not about just doling out money to athletes or to federations to hold an event. It should be looked at, if you really want the base of our pyramid to be really big, then the structure, as Sharda rightly said, nobody has a structure at the district or the state level. The national calendar is out, but your district and state calendars are not out. Today we are talking about Khelo India because our Prime Minister is, has brought in yoga and is known to take up sports which is very close to him. Khelo India also needs to have, they have their 12 verticals, they need to have a structure, but does Khelo India really encompass the entire 1.3 million schools available to this program? It doesn't. So I think there is much to be done, and how money should be allocated for various, whether it's the science of sports, whether it's bridging the knowledge of sports. There are things that, and whether we are really bringing out coaches. Now, nobody's talking about Hima Das's coach. We don't need a foreign coach to produce a world-class athlete. Yes, our coaches need to collaborate with world-class coaches all over the world and bring in so that we become self-sufficient. We are not talking about investing in those areas.
Fair point. Fair point indeed. We will touch upon those two things that you raised in just a short while, but let me get Mustafa here. And Mustafa, do corporates like yourselves look at sports as an avenue to spend that 2% mandatory CSR, or is this really serious business that you want to invest your energy, your emotions, some amount of your capital in?
No, I can only speak for ourselves over here, and it is extremely serious business. We are very committed to seeing Indian athletes really showcase their true potential and reach the levels that we believe they can reach. There's no doubt about the amount of talent that is there in the country right now, and they do need the right type of support and nurturing for them to produce results like Hima has last night. And as far as we're concerned, this is a very important project for everyone involved in the JSW group. And we couldn't be happier with the way things are progressing.
All right, a quick follow-up with you before I go across to Anuj Gupta, who's been patiently waiting. As far as sports infrastructure in India is concerned, one of the issues is that it's got very limited involvement from the private sector. It's a space largely dominated by the public sector, whether it's the CPWD or the state PWD, central state public sector undertakings. What will it take for the private sector to get involved? Are you at all enthused about a PPP, perhaps a competitive bidding process? I mean, how willing will you be to participate in this entire exercise? Mustafa?
So in some aspects, we have kind of broken away from that norm, where we have invested in infrastructure to build high performance training facilities for Olympic athletes. And while that is one such initiative, we as a country need many, many more. And yes, many of the points that you have just mentioned with regards to more PPP initiatives and tax benefits for corporates that would be interested in investing in infrastructure or upgrading infrastructure would definitely make it more viable for others to look at this as in a more long-term perspective.
Okay, let me just take this across to Anuj Gupta, and I want to just get the money part of this away. And Anuj, you're trying to do something which is unique. You have a franchise overseas. You're trying to train people here, marry the two worlds. As far as sports infrastructure is concerned, one of the key issues is that it's got very limited participation from the private sector. What will bring in more corporates? Will it be tax incentives that usually work for them?
Well, no, I run a residential football academy called Sudeva, and recently we have acquired a third division club in Spain called Olympic de Sativa. I can only talk about football, and in regards to football, I think what is missing in football is a poster boy. You know, someone like Sachin Tendulkar of football or Virat Kohli of football, and in order to produce that person, we would have to bridge the gap between what is happening in India and what is happening in Europe. And to bridge it, hence we have got into Spain, where the idea is that the most talented kids from India would get an opportunity to play in Spain for the club and their youth teams. And how quickly we are able to bridge that would definitely be able to produce that one player which is required for all the corporates to bet on. Because I believe that if you don't have superstars in sports, in a particular sport, the corporates don't come in. Right now, you know, if I talk about Sudeva, I have to go to corporates and I literally beg that, you know, either you put through the CSR funding or you put it through the marketing budget, but it has been very difficult. Hence, why? Because they always say that, you know, cricket has the eyeballs, right, or other sports have now, you know, world-class players. Right. We don't. So in order to do that, that patience is required, and we really have to push ourselves at the youth level and wait for that player to be produced.
Right.
You know, and that is something which all of us has to work.
Okay.
If I talk about football, and bring them more and more players to Europe.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, just hold your thoughts. One more thing I want to Ashwini Nachappa quite agrees with you on this, and so I will take it. No, just Anuj, give me a minute, I'll come back to you. Anuj, give me a minute, I'll come back to you. But I don't think Ashwini Nachappa quite agrees with you there. And Ashwini, while I'd like to react on this, I will also take a quick follow-up question. There is always this raging debate in India on the new formats of many sports, whether it's IPL or ISL that come top of mind. Because many people believe, are they killing the sport itself? What's your personal view on this? Do you believe it's these tweaked formats that really make the sport more marketable and which ends up attracting the big bucks, which will eventually benefit the sport itself? Or do you believe these formats perhaps spoil the very nature of the game, of the sport?
Well, I'll go back to what Anuj said about you know, having stars. I think Sunil Chhetri has done wonders for Indian football. He can be our role model. But our system is such that we don't utilize our own players to become role models. How many of them really talk about Valsama in athletics or Shiny in athletics? Nobody does. We are really not bringing back. If you see the existing World Cup, all coaches are former players who have played at big leagues, at big championships. They all are attracted and they are back into sport contributing. So if you really take the ratio of how many sports persons are back into the system, I mean, it's really pathetic. That's because the system does not allow it. You take whether it's the management of sports through federations, you know how it is run. So there is no entry level for athletes at all who have contributed. It is always a struggle. The second point about CSR, when you talk about the 2% CSR, I run a sports foundation in one of the smallest districts in India. It's called Coog. It has the smallest population but provided the Indian sports fraternity a large number of players. Yet we don't have a facility. But when you go to a corporate, what do they ask for? Is the child poor? Is it only for education? Is it only for a girl child? Sports is beyond poor or rich. It is talent. It is bridging that gap. And it is not about just education. Education and sports should go hand in hand. And what the corporate sector is really not doing is pumping in money at the grassroots. Everybody wants visibility. You cannot get visibility, and for any sportsman to be seen at the Indian level or at the top level, it takes 6 to 7 years. So you've got to invest in that kind of infra as well as programs at those levels.
Right. Ashwini, just hold your thoughts, because I think it also brings us to a very important question. And Sharda, Anu, just give me a minute. I'll go across to Sharda on this. And Sharda, you know, as somebody who's tracked sports for decades now, India also does lack a sporting culture. Should sports be made mandatory as part of the school curriculum to change the perception of sports just being this recreational activity? Do you believe, I mean, I hate anything that's mandatory to begin with, especially when it comes from the state. But do you believe in a country like ours where there's just so much emphasis on rote learning and on books, and sports being this, you know, byproduct of what you can do if at all you have recreational time? Do you believe that needs to change? I mean, look at what countries overseas do. It's a very integrated part of the curriculum in school, in college, and otherwise.
The whole discussion about whether sports should be in the curriculum sort of comes back every few years, you know, when we are kind of introspecting and saying what's wrong with us school system. I don't think that, you know, there's clearly an understanding of what sport does for a lot of athletes that come from the small towns and the villages and so on. It is a source of their livelihood. What we need, you know, rather, because I don't think middle class kids are going to bring us our Olympic heroes outside of shooting, to be very honest. You know, what is more important is what we have available through, whether it is infrastructure or events or say expertise at a higher level, and events at a level of, like Ashwini was talking about, you know, districts, enough events going on, enough sporting activity taking place for all these kids that are there. Numbers are always on our side. All these kids that are there, to give them something to compete in, to take part in. You know, for the last couple, I now work also along with Cricinfo, I work for ESPN.in, which is a multi-sport website, and I'm just discovering a lot about Indian football a bit too late in my career, but what the hell. But there you find out that there is this gigantic pool of talent, interest and ambition that is just sitting there, almost suffocated or almost stifled by, you know, administrative basically ennui over the last, say, 20-30 years. And now suddenly everyone's waking up and saying, yes, yes, you know, this is happening, but you need it to happen. Anuj was speaking about sort of finding the star and therefore taking people overseas. There's another option that is opening up in a couple of places around the country, which is called baby leagues. That means you're getting kids age 5 and 6 to take part in football literally every week, to be able to have a certain level of sort of competence and control when they reach the age of 11, 12 and 13, and then can get into the younger academies and so on. So there are many ways of doing this. There are many ways to skin a cat. But if you don't have a proper sustained campaign, which is not about money, but more thought is put into it, and if you don't have playgrounds and play fields where you can play, it doesn't matter if you make it compulsory in school. You know, what schools are they going? There are schools in buildings. We hear about schools that don't have teachers, never mind you know, playgrounds and so on.
Right.
So it's let's make the best of what we've got, and let's get as much expertise as we need at the level that we need to get it.
Indeed. Indeed. And on that note, I'm sorry, all of you have completely run out of time here. I wish this discussion was longer, and I wish I had more time on hand, but I will have to end this here. I'm sorry, Anuj, we'll have to keep this for another day. Anuj Gupta, Ashwini Chanapa, Sharda Ugra, and of course, Mustafa Ghaus. Thank you very, very much for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. There was no Indian whose heart wasn't filled with pride when Hima Das raced past all those other women with the tricolour proudly wrapped around her. She was a sight of grit, she was a sight of determination, and one of inspiration. She reminds us of an important lesson. No matter where you are and no matter what your circumstances, no dream is too big to be dreamt and no ambition too high to be achieved. Here's to an athlete par excellence, May her tribe increase. Thanks very much for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. We take a quick breather and we come back with Justice Gogoi's clarion call. He needs a noisy judiciary and an independent media. Why does he say so? We come back in just a moment. Stay right here with us.